A lot of people these days understand that if they're not admissible to Canada, in other words, if they're inadmissible to Canada, they can apply for something called a temporary resident permit. And by virtue of that permit, if that permit is approved, they can then come to Canada temporarily, right? So otherwise, if you say you have been banned for Canada for misrepresentation, you can apply for a TRP, make a temporary move to Canada. That is known to many people. What people really misses out on that is that TRP is not for everybody. Okay, if you are banned from entering Canada, quote to quote, technically yes, you can apply for a TRP, but should you apply for a TRP or no? That's altogether a different question. From my experience, because everything is case specific, so I cannot really generalize something. From my experience, I could tell you this: if you have a Canadian connection, and that Canadian connection, if that Canadian connection is permanent, in other words, if you have your spouse is a Canadian citizen, if your spouse is a Canadian permanent resident, citizen is better, followed by permanent resident, and if you have any valid and genuine reasons to come to Canada, like let's say your wife is going for a medical treatment, let's say somebody had died, and you have to attend that, obviously, that kind of a situation, then TRP makes sense, provided that if you have a strong Canadian connection whom you are not able to meet otherwise. If you have your daughter, if your son are Canadian citizens and they're living inside Canada, yes, you do have valid reasons to make an attempt to for a temporary resident permit. But just saying that, well, I want to visit Canada, saying that I want to attend the convocation of my cousin, saying that all those sorts of reasons which are not really exceptional in the book of IRCC to grant you the TRP. The reason I'm mentioning that is because do not forget the TRP is just a processing fee, that additional processing fee that you have to pay for the officer to process your otherwise TRV application in the form of a TRP. It's not an application, like it's not a separate application in itself, but you do not want unnecessary refusals on your profile because that doesn't get reflected well should you like to immigrate to Canada or apply for any temporary resident visa to Canada in the future. So before you decide to attempt to apply for a temporary resident permit, my suggestion here is to consult with somebody. It may not be necessarily with me. You can consult with anybody whom you think knows how this works, or you're more than welcome to come to me because we sort of deal with these kind of cases only. It is important for you to take a legal consultation to understand whether you should even go for it. This is an expensive, complicated, time-taking application. The government also takes a lot of time to process your application, and you do not want to invest your time, money, and energy and then getting a refusal in return. And obviously nobody can guarantee a success or failure, but at least a consultation will give you an idea whether you should even attempt to it, because the success rate is sort of okay for majority of the TRP applications. If you need our assistance, more than welcome to hop into our website nuvonation.ca, book a session from there, and we can go